Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to make this really fun window card. Lots of great tips and tricks, and it will hopefully help you use up some of your stash. I'm using a peg stamp set called Fairy Garden, as well as an unmounted stamp set called Whispers from the Garden from our sponsor Rubber Stamp Tapestry. You can find them online at pegstamps.com. Now I've already got my layers prepared, and I am mounting a stamp here, and I'm going to stamp this sentiment on a scrap of cardstock. Now, I had too much ink on my ink pad, and my first stamp came out a little too fat. I wanted a nice finer image, so what I did was I just lightly inked it up and stamped it again on a scrap, and I got an image that I liked. So I always save those cutoffs from the edges of my cards because I use it for stamping sentiments. Now, I took a heart die, and I cut it from both a blue panel of fun foam and a white panel of cardstock that was a little bit smaller. That way I would have a nice support under my window card, and also I would have a nice border, and I'll put those dimensions in the video description so you can check it out. I started off by stamping the gnome in red, and I'm using my little dewdrop ink pads from Memento. They're just so handy, and honestly I use my mini ink pads way more frequently than I do my larger ones, especially with these peg stamps. So if you mainly like to use peg stamps, I highly recommend getting the small pads, but the small pads can ink up any size stamp. So if you're short on space or cash and you want to have a big variety of inks for not a lot of money, that's definitely a great way to go. So I decided to choose a color palette that had some like teal, orange, red, and brown. I wanted it to kind of have almost like a 70s vibe to it, but I also wanted it to match some washi tape that I really wanted to use. I have a little bit of a washi tape addiction, and I'm just trying to use it more in my cards so I can justify it taking up an entire drawer in my craft room. Now I'm using this grass stamp, and this is actually from the Hyacinth and Mascari border stamp set from Rubber Stamp Tapestry, but it's the best grass stamp set because you can tilt it a little bit either way and fill in a huge area of grass without it looking too repetitive. So I'll link that up below too. And then just to fill in any gaps and make it feel a little bit more full, I'm just using my little makeup brush blender here. And what I did was I took a marker and I wrote either C on the back if I'm using cool colors, or a W on the back for my warm colors in my ink blending brushes, so I don't have to have a bunch. And that way I just have to wipe them on a paper towel or a piece of scrap paper, and it's clean enough for me to use my next color. Because they're a little pricier than other blending tools, so it's just easier to do it that way. And there my cat decided to pop into the frame. We just got a puppy, and the cat has been hanging out in my craft room downstairs most of the time because she is not amused. They are warming up to each other, but it's you know, it's a struggle, a little bit of a struggle. I also stamped this cute little snail from the garden set, from the Fairy Garden set at the top of the heart. Now, I've got to figure out where I want to put my washi tape. So I took the fun foam layer, and you can get craft foam or fun foam at any dollar store or a craft supply store. It's a general crafting item. And I traced it because I wanted to make sure that I covered the entire heart opening area with my washi tape. This washi tape, I think I picked it up at AC Moore, but you can find something similar at any craft store. And honestly, you don't have to have gnomes in it. You can use anything that would be like flowers or clouds or anything with the patterns and colors that you're using. So don't feel like you have to have customized specialty washi tape to do this. Use what you have. But I would pick the washi tape before you start stamping so you know what color palette you want to stamp in. That's the only important thing. Just like if you're using pattern paper, you could use pattern paper scraps for this too. It would work just fine. Now I'm using an X-Acto knife to just cut like through the tape. I'm doing this because the tape is going to extend onto the white border, and I don't want that to happen, so I'm just cutting off the excess, and then I can just easily peel it away. So yeah, use paper strips, you could use ribbon, anything you want behind the window. Washi tape is just convenient for me because I like to use it and I have a lot of it, but you use whatever makes sense for you. Now I'm putting adhesive onto the card base itself and not the fun foam layer, because I find that double-sided tape or tape runner adhesive is really difficult to get to stick to fun foam because it kind of wants to resist it. But if I put it on the paper, the fun foam will stick just fine. You could also use a fast drying wet glue for this if you prefer. It's up to you. And I can layer on my stamped cardstock panel, and it looks really nice. But before I glue it down, I wanted to add a brad embellishment. And this is a It's a decorative eyelet or brad from Eyelet Outlet. And every year when I go to the stamp show, I always go through their booth because I use brads like they're going out of style. Actually, I think brads went out of style many years ago, but I still like them. And I really like that they have really funky, like embellishment style brads that are really easy to attach. I don't need glue, and they're not heavy or thick, and I can mail them just fine without extra postage. So I really like to use those shaped brads, and they come in like hundreds of cute styles and designs. So that's what I use to embellish this card. And then I'm just going to adhere the panel, the little sentiment panel, over the heart. But before I do that, I want to add a little bit of ink. And now I'm using that same brush that I used for the green that I just wiped on a scrap of paper. That's all I did to clean it. And I'm just going in with some blue ink and just hitting the edges. And ideally you want to use an ink that you've already stamped with, and then it will match perfectly. So I'm just putting a little bit of wet glue on each corner here on the bottom because I know that's going to touch the white cardstock and it's not going to seep anywhere I don't want it to. And I'm just going to lay that over the opening. And I think this is a really sweet card. It could be a card for your husband or wife. It could be a card for your child or parent. It's really sweet and fun, and that fun foam will keep it from getting crushed in the mail. And I think it looks real nice. You can find the stamps I used at Rubber Stamp Tapestry or pegstamps.com, and I hope you give it a try. Thank you so much for watching today. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and hey, share it with a friend. Until next time, happy crafting.